blonde hair, blue eyes, nice skin, so gorgeous. We thank the life gorgeous. Thank the life gorgeous. I love the life gorgeous. Its torso is so tight.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Life Gorgeous. My name is Craig Hers, Mr. Kilborn. Very special show. Some of you know that my Minnesota Timberwolves are playing very well. Number one in the West. Second best record in the NBA as we record this, which was last Wednesday after they beat OKC. There's a guy who is addicted to the Wolves like I am. He's a young person. His name is Dane Moore. He has the Dane Moore NBA podcast. He specializes in the Timberwolves. That's all he talks about. That's all he cares about. Please welcome Dane Moore. How was that, brother?
That's good, man. How did you come up with the
I don't know.
What is the genesis of that?
My friend from he's the executive producer and head writer of Family Guy, Alex Sulkin. He laughs hysterically when I do it, and we tried to deconstruct am I mocking inner peace? Am I just relaxing? Am I just life is good? Who knows what I'm doing? But it makes him laugh. It makes me laugh, and it actually makes a lot of people laugh. But I don't know. Sometimes I just do things. But I wasn't doing it during the game last night. It was a lot to talk about. First, let me tell you people about your podcast. How many years you've been doing it?
So initially I was a writer, covering the Wolves. And then in 2020, got laid off from my job when COVID hit and there wasn't an NBA season. So I started doing the podcast full time, I guess the end of 2020. And, so it was bad. You know, those days, that's probably when you started listening, you know?
Yeah.
And
you have a loyal following. It's doing well, correct? You must be very happy.
It's funny. Like so today as we're recording that, there's like that Spotify Wrapped thing where it says like your most listened to music and podcasts and stuff like that. And people send me like, oh, look, Dane, you're one of my most listened to podcasts. And it's flattering. And I get that a lot, but I'm like, it's because of this fan base, which you get like, and I think probably a lot of people nationally, right, who like the Timberwolves have not been a successful franchise historically and are a forgotten franchise. And I think that would lead people to believe that there is not a obsessive basketball community here, which I grew up here, you grew up here, like, there is for sure an obsessive basketball community, and it does exist in connection to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think actually being bad for as long as they were made really smart fans. Like they, it's bad basketball. So you're analyzing like who could be the next guy who comes up and like, what is Andrew Wiggins going to be? Is Naz Reid going to be a thing? Like there's so much of these like in the weeds trades and free agency and all this sort of stuff that has come to kind of, I think, been the only interesting part of Timberwolves fandom for a long time. And what's so cool about this season to me and for those fans is that you still have this deep understanding of the game and the team and the franchise. And it's now connecting together with good basketball that I'm just pumped for the fan base that
I saw mine.
That they have something to get into. Craig, it's so cool. Like at the games now, I mean,
I'm hearing, because I haven't been to a game this year, but they're saying, I was going to ask you, is that the crowds have always been good, but it sounds like they know something special is happening. So from the get-go, the beginning of the season, the home games are intense with the crowd, correct?
Totally. Yeah. And there's been a lot of games where it wasn't intense.
Right.
There was a lot of empty seats, like, back just a couple of years ago, even like just the beginning of Ant's career. I think like it's year 4 of Anthony Edwards, and there's been some television streaming issues and stuff like that. It hasn't been on local television everywhere here. And there's the COVID season. So you kind of missed Ant's rookie year. And now I feel like people are so jumping in on the whole team. But this is the first year I really feel like Ant is deeply and widely being known and understood. And he's playing so well at 22 years old. Like I don't know. I didn't know if he was going to be like an all NBA player coming in this season, but how can you not say he's been a top 15 player in the league this year?
Everybody nationally loves him. And we're going to talk
he's cool, man.
Yeah, there's something about him. We're going to talk about it. I just wanted to go back to a little bit about basketball in Minnesota because I'm older than you, but in the 70s, so we moved there from New Jersey and, late 60s, early 70s, but I was addicted to basketball. I was good at it. My dad wanted us to play baseball, but we were no good. And we didn't have an NBA team, but the Minnesota Gophers were like our NBA team. So they say it's a hockey state. We all know the Vikings rule the state. But there have always been basketball fans. And in the 70s, the Gophers, they had Kevin McHale, Michael Thompson, Ray Williams. They had Trent Tucker. They had really good teams. So the Wolves came into existence in 1989. And then they had the KG era. And then we were really bad after KG. But now we're doing well. We have 2 number 1 picks. I think we hit on both of them. Some people have an issue with KAT. But that year, it was Okafor, KAT.
Right.
And I'm a big KAT fan, and I know Ant's special. But everything is, and now Rudy is playing well. Before I get to it, I just wanted to ask you, because I had this note. Do you ever talk Vikings on your podcast, and do you care about the Vikings?
I started working in media when I was 27. And, before then, like, I was actually a really big baseball fan. My family's like from Chicago, was a huge Cubs fan. Mike Tice, remember Mike Tice, the Vikings coach?
Yeah.
He was my baseball coach growing up. And so like in 98, I went to like training camp all the time, got the whole team, signed a pennant of that. And so I really loved like baseball, the game, and I was a big Vikings fan. But it's weird once you start, long story short, once you start working in media, like, or a sports media, it really, the other things fall away. Because I'm just watching a lot of basketball, and it's like, okay, I probably can't watch every Twins game, Vikings game, like that. Yeah. And so now, man, it's all Viking, or it's all Timberwolves, and it's all NBA all the time for me, pretty much. I'll watch football on Sundays, but I don't talk about anything else. People are like, "What? You do like 5 podcasts a week on the Timberwolves?" And I'm like, it's the crazy fan base.
It is smart to specialize, and the fans must love it.
I would also suck at doing anything else. I will.
No, I care about the Vikings like crazy because I obviously started watching them in the early 70s. I was an NBA fan in the 70s, Dr. J, etc., and ABA, NBA, the whole thing. But no, I live and die with the Vikings, and I watch every Wolves game, and I'm addicted to the Wolves. And this year is special. And I remember saying last year, game 5 at Denver, I said, we can play with these guys. And I always look to see, I think Boston's tough. So I'm allowed to dream. Don't say this, but want to see if we can get out of the West somehow, get in the finals against the Celtics. But let me just laser in on a few things. So Rudy's playing well. What is your concern? Utah used to have great regular seasons. I'm just going to give you 3 teams in the West, and tell me if you are. I'm jumping ahead to the playoffs, but you have OKC, Phoenix, and Sacramento. Are those bad matchups for the Wolves in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to be so important to figure out over these next 60 games or whatever is what is a bad matchup, and to understand and address that in the season. I think it's a big reason why it's important that they're starting strong this year because, you and I talked about this on my show entering the season. I was like, I think this is going to be a really good regular season team. I really do. But I've had, since the Gobert trade, concerns about what does this look like in the playoffs? And to your point, kind of from some of the ways in which Utah got exposed in the playoffs with Rudy. But the biggest thing, man, that's changed is the Wolves are an elite defensive team, much like Utah was an elite defensive team. But they have a diversity of ways on this team to play defense. And we saw that last night, playing zone versus and that was the problem in Utah, was that there was one way of playing. And we think back to that Clippers series where they spread out five out, and they made Rudy guard on the perimeter. And during the regular season, that's something Rudy hadn't done.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, you're watching these games. That's happening every night. Like, yeah, they played zone in the second half, but man, he was all over Chet Holmgren on the perimeter.
Oh man,
yesterday, and we've seen that consistently throughout. I think it's very smart that Finch is trying to solve some of the issues that could potentially happen in the playoffs by learning multiple different ways to play during the regular season. And so to that end, I think they're more ready than I thought they were to play one of those good teams in the playoffs. The Sacramento game, I think if we're pointing to one and one opponent right now, it's them that's most concerning because they are so fast, the players, and they move the ball so well and so quickly with the ball. And the Wolves are going to be generally slower as a big team. They're really long, but closing out to the perimeter, being able to move against foot speed and ball movement speed, that's the thing that I have on my mind, particularly from that Kings game the day after Thanksgiving. But let's see. Yeah, 60 games. Let's see.
So the Sacramento game last year, they finished fourth. I thought we were better than them because we beat them 3-1. I didn't think their defense was good. I thought their defense has definitely improved this year. So I don't know. Remember that Clipper Utah game and series? And my thing is, well, wait a second. If another team is going to shoot over 40% or a high percentage on threes, most teams are going to lose. But then I'm wondering, is it because they're wide open because the defense is not contesting? No. So I'm not sure exactly what happened in the Sacramento game. I know that Sacramento shot the lights out. Is it because they were wide open that we're slow, or is it in fact good offense beats good defense? Do you think we were slow in that game contesting?
I think it was a combination of things. I think they're somewhat caught off guard by the speed of Sacramento. And again, it's not just the speed of, De'Aaron Fox is fast. A lot of the Malik Monk, like they're fast foot speed, but I think they got caught off guard by the speed of the ball movement, which put them a half step behind on some of those closeouts to defend the perimeter. And did Sacramento maybe get like a little bit lucky and hitting they make like 10 threes in the first half or something like that? But at the same time, it's like, what's the process to that? And that's why I always think about with 3-point shooting. And it's why I haven't, prior to that game, opponents were shooting like 31% from three against the Wolves. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's shooting luck. And I'm like, no, I think they're really contesting the perimeter really, really well. And that's why the opponents were missing. The contests weren't there against Sacramento. And I think they missed Jaden. That Jaden McDaniels is a huge part of that. I say all the time, and Jaden McDaniels is taller than KAT.
Right.
And that is a hell of a dude to shoot over.
Wait, I didn't write this down, but I want to ask Tim Conley this, but I don't know if you've ever. How badly did Danny Ainge want Jaden McDaniels? Do you know or not?
That was for sure. So they end up giving up 5 first-round picks for Rudy. That would have certainly been a lesser number if you included Jaden McDaniels in that. But you know who I think? So Tim Conley makes that Gobert trade a month after getting the job. Right? He's of course he's like scouted the Wolves or whatever, but he didn't know Jaden McDaniels. You know who knows Jaden McDaniels is Chris Finch. And I guarantee when they were having those conversations about trading for Gobert, Finch was like, yeah, I'm all about that. We better not let this McDaniels kid go, because Finch, he said it like right away after getting here. He compared him to Scottie Pippen. And Finch is not like a hyperbolic type of talker,
Yeah.
And we were all like, whoa, okay. Like Ant's MJ and Jaden's Scottie Pippen. But Finch understands and appreciates not only Jaden's game, but kind of willingness to embrace defense when he probably has more offensive game. That's just, they got Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. You need Jaden more on defense than you do on offense. And Jaden embraces that. And that's why I think it was so important to Finch and Tim Conley to keep Jaden.
Yeah, I'm surprised at Jaden's offense. I have a note here. I guess I could. I just wanted to ask you one more defensive question. I'm going to get into our shooting, but are you more concerned about transition defense, getting back with our size, or the half court versus a smaller team? I would think it would be transition is the biggest concern.
But it hasn't been a problem this year. I absolutely would have said that at the beginning of the season.
Remember that Spurs game last year at home?
Yeah, right away. It was like the third game of the year. Just Pop was like, just run. And they ran the Wolves. That was a bad Spurs team, ran the Wolves right off the floor. And that's when we were all like, man, I don't know about these two bigs. Like, this is gonna work when like Trey Jones is running off the floor. But credit to them. They hired Corliss Williamson. Remember him back from the Pistons? He's kind of taken on the coaching duty of rebounding and transition defense. Like he's working intimately with Carl and Rudy and Nas about like, hey, just hammer it home. Like if you guys don't get back, we're gonna lose. And that got proven out last season. And man, credit to Corliss and credit to the bigs. Like they're being so much more intentional about getting back this year. And that was their Achilles heel a season ago when the two bigs were on the floor.
So I'm concerned.
But the half-court defense is awesome. Let's just say that. Like, yeah, maybe there's going to be some fast teams, but this team is going to end the season as the number one half-court defensive team in the league. Like, I'd be shocked.
I love, like, there were some things that happened in the fourth quarters, mostly Rudy just altering and challenging.
Isn't it fun, Craig? Like, the
crowd is going.
Start watching it?
Yes, and the crowd, I love when a crowd loves defense. It just changes everything.
Yeah.
And, the Wolves fans, I mean, it's got to be exciting. Hey, when you're watching a game, you're at the media row, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do they have a monitor there for you or not?
No, we got the big jumbo screen up there ahead. So when all the fans are standing up at the beginning and I can't see the floor, I'm watching that. But I watch the games back on my computer afterwards.
They have these things. They have this, like last night, they show the replay. When you see replays, so you don't see any replays except what they choose to show up top.
Right.
Because Shea Gilgeous Alexander, he does the Trae Young thing. He does the Harden thing. He did it last night where he gets just a slight contact on Ant, and he flips his head back like it was violent, and they call a foul. And they showed the replay, and Jim Pete's going like, "Come on, man, this is ridiculous." So I was wondering, it's a little frustrating when you don't get to see the replays, right?
Well, I mean, I saw that one up on the Jumbotron. I think like there's degrees to that flopping, right? And like what I don't like about how Trae does it is once he gets somebody behind him, he stops.
That's what Dame Lillard does it. It's just so gimmicky.
It's not a basketball play, right? But I mean, at the same time, like it's the rules. He's getting the call. So like, whatever. But I just aesthetically don't like that. The Shea one though, with Ant, like Ant bumped his shoulder and then he flopped. Like, I think Ant might've still got called for that if Shea didn't fling his head back, Okay. But I don't mind it as much when a player is selling actual foul contact. It's still floppy and it's still, but I get it tactically. Like I would do it.
No, I think when you're in the post and somebody goes through your chest, and if you just stand there, they go, "Oh, he's just backing him down."
Right.
But if you fly with a legitimate offensive foul, because don't get me started on Shaquille O'Neal. I had an issue with him. So one of my concerns, I'm going to give you some of my concerns with the Wolves. I want to hear your response. I wanted to get a pure shooter.
This is the most Wolvesy thing, by the way. And I do this all the time. The team's 13-4. The season is going so much better than we could have ever expected. Yet we start with what are our concerns? And that is was that Stockholm syndrome or whatever? But
I'm just trying to improve the team.
There you go.
I'm very pleased with things. I'm seeing a lot of good things. We do have offense in our starting five. It's kind of cool, because Mike Conley and Jaden are guys that can definitely do things. But so we don't have pure shooting except for like KAT. And I wanted to get a shooter. So we get Shake Milton and Troy Brown Jr. And Shake hasn't, come to the party yet. And then Troy Brown had a breakout game yesterday. And it was interesting because Finchy, in the post game last night, he said, he's a better shooter than I thought. I thought he might be streaky. And I still think he's streaky because I look at his career stats. But I just want to tell you something. I looked something up this morning. Sometimes I see another team. I go, God, what if we had Malik Monk off the bench? Whoa. But his career stats, field goal percentage and 3-point percentage almost identical to Troy Brown Jr. But of course, Malik Monk's average is a lot more. His 3-point career it's higher by like 0.7%. I want to say I can't remember what it is now. If it's
36,
it's over 35, so it might be 35.9 or something. And I think Troy Brown is 35.2 or something like that. But Malik Monk can score. So we don't, Jalen Noel didn't work out. So I'm concerned about the bench. Is that and the pure shooting? Because when you play against Bradley, you assume Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Durant.
Yeah.
I mean, does that concern you about pure shooting with our team or not?
It concerns me from a spacing standpoint, because if teams aren't respecting one or two of your shooters at a time, which we're seeing happen with Kyle Anderson, Shake Milton, when those guys aren't shooting and the defenders are playing off of them, then it makes it a lot harder for Ant to do what he likes to do most, which is or what he's best at, which is getting to the bucket. There's another body he's got to go through there. And then Carl, I mean, how many times, and Carl's in a tough spot because he wants to play that pump and go game and get all the way to the basket, and Rudy's at the basket. So no matter what, like, Rudy's man's gonna be helping on Carl. But if you got Kyle Anderson one pass away from Carl and his man's not guarding out to the perimeter on Kyle, now Carl has to navigate his man, Kyle's man, and Rudy's man at the basket. And, Carl, he didn't play that well against OKC last night, but the previous 10 games has. But that's a tricky thing for him to navigate. So I think shooting absolutely needs to be addressed at the deadline. I think can be addressed immediately by playing Troy Brown Jr. over Shake Milton once the roster's, healthy again, Jaden's back, whatever. But you need that. I was concerned about losing Taurean Prince in the offseason.
Yeah.
He's a shooter, also a defender, and he was physical, right? Like TP played hard. And that was I just didn't know enough about Troy Brown Jr. coming in. I'm like, all right, he's kind of like a shooter like TP. He's big. He's like 6'7". But is he tough? Is he physical? And man, has that popped, right? Since he started playing is he's crashing the glass. He's getting the loose balls. He's doing the Taurean Prince stuff. And that was a big loss.
Wait a second. I heard something in a post game last night. There was a reporter, I think his name was Dane Moore. And I think he said to Mike Conley, so Troy Brown was a point guard in college. Is that true or not?
Yeah.
He was. I can't see that. He was a point guard in college.
It's the craziest thing about this whole roster, man. You ask Kyle Anderson what position he plays, he says point guard. You ask Troy Brown what position he plays, he says point guard. You ask Nickeil Alexander what position he plays, he says point guard. And I look at the roster and I go, this team has one point guard on it, Mike Conley. But they all did grow up playing it, which is an interesting thing from like a roster construction standpoint from Tim Connolly to getting all of these guys who are comfortable with their handle and whatever. So I asked Mike about it. I'm like, as a pure point guard, what is it like playing with 2-3 other guys who think they're point guards at the same time? And I think it's what Mike said is it's like you have that subconscious sort of connection with another guy who is thinking in a similar way to the way that you think as a point guard. And I would imagine that that's extremely helpful, and then not to mention like this team doesn't have a backup point guard really with Jordan McLaughlin out. You kind of need some of that handling too. You need Ant to be that. It's an interesting, it's just an interesting roster, man. It's huge.
Do you think
and a lot of point guards?
Right. We got rid of Matt Ryan. We chose Daishawn Nix. I actually haven't seen enough of Daishawn Nix, but I love the way he moves on the floor, handles the ball. His field goal percentage statistically in the past has been bad. Is he better than Matt Ryan? Are you surprised that Matt Ryan is playing as well as he is down in New Orleans? And is he something where he just didn't play the defense enough where he wasn't in the rotation, obviously. He seemed pretty distant there. But are you surprised at how well he's playing in New Orleans?
My question with Matt Ryan always was like, all right, you're a shooter, but are you a shooter? And Matt in his time here wasn't a shooter. It came and went. And I think it's what we're seeing with Troy Brown now. You get a consistent role. shockingly, the 3 start going in. Matt Ryan, I mean, they're using him next to Zion in New Orleans now. They just need a shooter around him, and he's playing every night, and he's getting the opportunity to take 4, 5, 6 threes in a game, and he's making them. It's like, I mean, shooters are this weird mental thing where you got to be able to like catch and sustain a rhythm, and oftentimes your place in the rotation sort of determines that. At the same time, like, I'm intrigued by Daishen Nix, and this is a deep cut. We're talking about two-way players here for this team, but one of my buddies is an assistant coach for the Houston Rockets, where Daishen Nix came from. And so, I don't know that much about Nix. So I called him up when the Wolves signed him, and he just raved about him. And like I thought in an honest way, because Daishen Nix is like a brick.
I know, he's strong.
He's a big dude.
I sometimes watch him. I haven't seen enough. I say, is he better than Jordan McLaughlin right now? I don't know.
I think they're very different.
Right.
But I think like a little more bigger picture with this front office. We know that this team's going to get extremely expensive. It already is, right? And you're going to need to start making decisions from there. The biggest and best thing that this front office can do is finding guys, diamonds in the rough that are cheap, right? And I believe in this front office's ability to do that. I know they're super intentional about it. Like even Luka Garza, who hasn't really played that much for this team, it's like he's not even on an NBA contract. And you're like, yeah, I don't know if like one or two of the centers went down for this team, I don't think I'd feel that bad about Luka Garza playing. Maybe if one of the bigs leave in the next couple of years, maybe you can plug him in. Like this front office needs to take shots on guys like Daishen Nix, Luka Garza, Josh Minot, Leonard Miller, or whatever, because at some point, Mike Conley's going to retire. Kyle Anderson's going to be gone. Money's going to get tight, and you're not going to have money to go out and sign a player. You're going to have to take it internally and someone on the cheap, and they're developing these young players like Josh Minot and Leonard Miller, who were second-round draft picks, and then two-way guys like Daishen Nix, Luka Garza, Wendell Moore Jr. is getting some time in the G League. Like at least one of those guys have to hit, because at some point, Kyle Anderson's going to be gone, Mike Conley's going to be gone, whatever, and you need to replace it. So I just track that with the front office. They got that on their mind, and they have to nail that.
Hey, Dane, we have a first-round pick this summer.
Yeah, I know.
I can't wait to have a party for that. Yeah, have a party for that. Okay, another concern from Craigers. Okay. It was interesting that I didn't know that about these, Troy Brown playing point guard. Mm-hmm. And I remember Finch a few days ago said, I'm not going to have I don't have a point guard that gets 14 assists. So I always liked it when they gave it to Ricky Rubio. I liked when the ball handler handled it most of the time, because I loathe turnovers. I loathe them. But Finchy has said, I like the pace to be a certain way. Well, I'm going to have to live with some turnovers. So I looked it up this morning, 14.5. I always like 12, the max 12 turnovers. Wolves at 14.5. I think they had 20 last night. It was a sloppy game, but it was, there were a lot of whistles and stuff, and I won't point out which ref was screwing up, but that's okay. But anywho, are you concerned about turnovers with the team and passing? Because it's,
great question.
Weren't the other questions great?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Just kidding.
The Daishen Nix one, no, okay. This is what I am concerned about with turnovers. Is of those 14.5, how many of them are passes to Rudy?
Oh.
Right? Like, how many times is it? And granted, it's this weird like conundrum. Like, if you connect with the pass to Rudy, it's a dunk, right? And so it's 2 points,
right?
But how often is it? And Carl does a pretty good job of finding him. But a couple times a game, it's airmailed to him, or Rudy doesn't have the best hands.
Hit the rim last night.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So I wonder about the opportunity cost in general about including Rudy on the offensive end. Some of it, like, you have to, because you see when Rudy's like rolling down the lane, the defense comes in, they put two bodies on him, and that's so valuable. And if you don't ever give him a touch, you don't hit him there, they're not going to come and collapse on him, which is going to open things up for Ant or on the perimeter or whatever. But man, it's just like every time there's a Cat or Ant to Rudy incomplete pass that winds up being a turnover, I go, does this need to be that much of the offense? And it feels like a little somewhat political to me, where it's like, all right, Rudy's doing everything on defense. It's the classic, like, got to get the big guy a touch sort of thing. But is it the best thing for the team? I wonder about that.
It's inconsistent because KAT, you say his man's Rudy's man's going to help on KAT. That leaves Rudy open. So KAT's very good at driving and just lobbing it to him. That's good. One of the things I don't like is late in the game, and it's tricky. In the last 2 minutes, KAT might have it at the top. Rudy's underneath. He whips it to Rudy in the post for a dunk. But Rudy has to turn and do it. And they foul the heck out of him, and he has to shoot free throws. I'm like, don't want him shooting late in the game, man. Don't pass it to him late in the game. It's tricky. It's tricky if he doesn't get a dunk immediately, if he gets clobbered. So the turnovers bother me. And, we're nitpicking. Ant's got to continue to improve his floor game and shot selection. He's obviously very special. I don't know. He makes the three-pointers. He's not a pure shooter. He keeps working on it. I love Ant. I think he's going to keep working on his floor game. And I heard, Mike Conley say, look for the guys when you're double teamed, look for the pass. Here's something you might disagree with me. So for the people listening, Dane is, I think it's safe to say you're very into analytics, correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's all part of the pie.
Yeah. Cause you're one of these young guys. I do the eye test. Craigers does the eye test. So like Barkley, we do the eye test. So I don't know I think Finchie probably agrees with you on this. And I like the mid-range jumpers for Ant. Every time he makes one, everyone goes, oh, it's like Jordan. He just backed the guy. And then I like them. KAT's not shooting them, but he's such a great shooter. He used to just shoot these little, 17-footers. He's automatic. Mm-hmm. And if KAT's shooting a 17-footer, he's not driving and flailing and getting hurt or offensive foul.
Yeah.
So where do you stand on those two guys being allowed to shoot the mid-range?
I looked this up before the Oklahoma City game, and they were taking the most mid-range shots of any team in the league.
The Wolves are?
The Wolves are.
Oh.
And they are making them at the highest
they are.
rate
They definitely are.
In the NBA. And that doesn't analytically normally line up, right? The more you do of something, the less you typically make of it, which to me suggests it can't probably sustain. Something has to change. But I wonder, though, if it's not a good place for Karl to get some more of his offense. The rim, like we were talking about, is not really there. Particularly when he's on the floor at the 4 with Rudy at the 5, like he's not going to be able to get all the way there. I've always wanted Karl to have more of like some more perimeter orientation to his game, shoot more threes. I think he's got a bag deep enough to be able to take some step back threes and do some of the stuff you see like Wemby doing, right? But like a cousin of that is getting to the mid-range under control and being able to make those 17-footers. So I like that for KAT at times if it's in place of some of the more chaotic drives. The Ant one is tricky because you need the mid-range game in the playoffs. That's true. He's gotten a lot.
He likes bank shots.
He loves the bank shot now. But it's important to get to the middle of the floor as the primary scorer and be a threat to shoot and pass. Ant can really pass it from the middle there. You think about that Golden State game where he found Conley in the corner for the game-winning shot. That's a product of being a threat from the mid-range and two guys coming to him and leaving Mike wide open in the corner. So it's this double-edged sword that I think Finch doesn't really want to mess with. Mm-hmm. Because Ant is kind of like one of those where if you tell him not to do it, he'll stop it altogether maybe. And that might be an overcorrection one way or the other. So I think Finch's idea is to live with it and slowly maybe wean it out or be more, judicious with it over time. But the reality of the situation is in a month from now, the Wolves probably aren't going to be first in the NBA in volume of mid-range shots and percentage of mid-range shots. So how do you adjust off of that, to have the best offense? Because here's the thing, man, like this is an elite defense. They might be the number one defense in the league at season's end. It's not an elite offense. They are not an elite offensive team. So all of these things that we're nitpicking at, like you said, Finch likes to say there's more meat on the bone. Like, how are they going to eat that meat off the bone? And I think there's a handful of different ways, offensively, defensively, different players that, they're one small tweak away from making their game work a little bit better. And I'm curious to see how Finch navigates that, because I think it's different for Carl as it is for Jaden, for Ant, or whatever. Like, Finch has a hell of a job here, man. Like, this is not an easy roster construction to navigate.
Right.
And to that end, like, let's be somewhat patient with it, because all of our skepticism that we've had for the past 12 months, you know, like, hand raised, like, I was pretty wrong on a lot of that stuff. And a lot of that credit goes to Finch for needing some time to navigate it and figure it out.
Do you ever sense in post game when you're questioning Finchy that he's irritated by Dane Moore? Or is it not like that? Everyone's Minnesota nice there? Everyone's
no.
Minnesota
Last season. So one, I will just say this, like, so my first coach I covered was Tibbs. So that was a weird place to start. Finch is great for us. And I think he kind of like understands that the type of questions I'm going to ask are different than the type of question John Krasinski, who's been on your show before, might ask, because we have different jobs, you know? And he's very in tune with that. I think he got a little annoyed with all of us last season because it was an annoying season. And we're asking a lot of the same questions because it was the same issues over and over again. But largely, I think I would like to think that I try to ask more of the X's and O's or whatever type of questions that Finch has an appreciation for that. But it's just a funny thing, man, in media, like, where you're covering these people and you have these relationships with them, but they're not friendships. You know, It's this work relationship. You don't even work for the same employer. It's a bizarre but interesting thing. And I'm really grateful for, honestly, all the coaches and players of how they handle me and handle everybody.
Could you imagine if Finchy gave a Jason Kidd answer like Jason Kidd did last night, swearing and oh my God, that was hilarious.
Yeah. Tibbs never swore. He just didn't care. He just was like, he's like, why am I here? It's like, I'm like, why am I here? I don't know either.
Here's an interesting topic. I always find it obnoxious when people say, okay, this is like a year ago, it's Ant's team. Carl has to accept that. It's Ant's team. And I'm a huge Karl Anthony Towns fan, although I'm realistic. And when he's bothersome, I'm like, okay, I'm not opposed to one day trading him, telling me what we're getting, but I think he's made improvements. But when his offense is clicking and he's been playing very well this year, I think sometimes, honestly, I might enjoy watching him more than Ant, which may sound weird. Maybe because when he came into the league, I was like, oh my God, he's shooting 54%. This guy, I've never seen anybody, this guy, because we had KG who was so good on defense, and KG's offense, he worked hard on,
Mm-hmm.
But KAT, it's a little effortless. But I liked what Michael Grady and Jim Pete said. They were on the road. I think it was at Golden State. It's not Batman and Robin. I think they said it was either Batman and Batman or Robin and Robin. In other words, let KAT be KAT and let Ant be Ant. And I think they love each other. But do you find it obnoxious when people say it's Ant's team? I know I'm going long here, but we know Ant's going to take over down the end because he's a perimeter player. Tim Duncan's not going to get the ball in the perimeter and start yo-yoing like Michael Jordan. So a perimeter player can yo-yo at the end of a game and search for a shot and pull up for a three or drive to the basket. But what is your take on whose team is it?
I think it matters and doesn't matter. Like, there's this balance to be struck, right? And Ant is so good that it's making that balance easier. Like, Ant is clearly a level above Carl. And that's not an indictment of Carl. There's this 22-year-old supernova who landed in Minnesota.
Right.
That it's not ridiculous to say he could be one of the best players in the NBA. Carl is one of the best bigs in the NBA. That's just a different level. So I think it can work because it's not at this level where they really threaten each other. One, they play different positions. That's good. And two, it's like, what can Carl really argue here? That there's not much of an argument there. And at the same time, I've covered Carl for most of his career. Carl is so sick of being on bad teams.
Yeah.
And he's, that's been his existence here. And he's been frustrated with the dysfunction and this and that. So it would be the most hypocritical thing ever to be like, well, now I'm pissed that we got a really good player on our team.
Exactly.
And I'm down
Right.
the pecking order. I think there's a lot Carl has to navigate with it. Obviously, he's changing positions. That changes so much of where he's at on the floor on both sides of the court. I think that's way harder for him to navigate the Rudy element of it, just technically, than it is to navigate the personality element of it. Like, in the right situations, my sense is Carl is cool with ceding leadership responsibility. I think about it with Patrick Beverly 2 seasons ago. Carl was cool with, like, all right, Pat, like, you're the loud one, you're the vet, but Carl was clearly better than him. So there wasn't this like weird dynamic going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, as long as the dynamic is clear, I think Carl can be cool with it, as long as at least they're winning.
Right. And let me clarify that I don't think there's an issue with those guys at all. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not close to the team. I'm mainly venting at the fans and the media people who are saying it. So I'm criticizing other people saying, Carl's got to accept it's Ant's team. No, Carl's still the most aggressive big in the league. He's going to drive and try to score every time he touches the ball. I mean, I just think it's silly. I'm criticizing the people outside, not those guys, because I think they like each other and they're grateful. And the fact that Ant's like before the year, I need Carl's going to be MVP type this year. I'm going to get him going. We're going to get Carl going. So I'm really pleased with the whole thing. I still wanted to beat Atlanta. Can't let that go. I'm kidding. I want Mike Conley to be 28 years old. I can't let that go. No, but no, this is a magical time. And this is my other question is, so how different might the roster look? Now, I don't follow there. As a basketball fan, I sometimes don't care about luxury tax and who, I just looked up something this morning because I go, how did the Clippers do it? Oh, I didn't know Westbrook wasn't making that much. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I've heard you talk about it because it's part of being, going into the weeds and talking about all this stuff. Or maybe it's not in the weeds. Maybe it's part of, constructing a team. But are we going to look that much different next year? And that's why I say let's go as far as we can this year.
You know me, man. I like getting into the weeds. I find the salary cap stuff really interesting. I refer to it as like the rule book to the board game that is the NBA. Like, it is how you shape your rosters, the money you have, the exceptions you have, whatever. We don't need to get into all that, but it defines what type of team you can put together. And I think we're at this really interesting time right now where it's like, yeah, man, enjoy the hell out of this season. Like, this team's really good, and embrace it. But simultaneously, like, we should acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that, one, your team's getting really expensive, and two, that your best player is 22 years old, and you want to create a sustainable environment for him to grow as he approaches his prime, which, by the way, is nowhere close. We got like 3, 4, 5 years until Ant is at his prime. So I don't like when people say, enjoy this now, worry about the luxury tax stuff later. We're smart enough to be able to think about both. Like, it is going to define Anthony Edwards' career.
Right.
The way in which they navigate the money and reconfigure the roster to be within a reasonable salary cap range. Right. That is a fact. That is a fact that this will define them. The thing we cannot define is that you can spend into the luxury tax. There is not a hard cap on this. It is about your owners and their willingness to pay insane luxury tax amounts. If they want to spend it, they can spend it. Pay $100 million a year in just luxury tax payment. You can do that. But it's undefined because we don't know what Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry's willingness to spend in that sort of way is. How would we know that? They're not even technically the owners yet, but they are going to be the owners this summer when everything hits. Ant's contract goes up by like $20 million, all this sort of stuff. And that is the real question, is what is their willingness to spend going to be, because that will define it. And it's fair to say both ways. They don't want to be cutting $100 million luxury tax bills per season. We can't be that mad at them. The Clippers, Steve Ballmer, who's richer than everyone, like, they're making concessions to the roster to save luxury tax money. The Warriors are the most successful franchise, most profitable franchise in the league. They're making concessions to not pay this luxury tax. So I don't want to indict Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry if they don't do it, because that's just money. But we don't know. I can't know how they're going to spend because I don't have any track record for what their behavior is because they're not even NBA owners yet.
I've heard people say, I think you just said it, and Finch, I think has said it a few times. Ant's not in his prime yet. He's 22. And I'm thinking, yeah, but he might not play with a guy like Rudy Gobert when he's 28. And, my whole thing is win now. And as you were saying that, I was like, well, wait a second. How young was Dwayne Wade when he tore up the Mavericks in the finals that year? I thought he was pretty young when he did that. But I do want to win this year. I want to go as far as we can.
That should be the thing, man. It's like they have an all-in roster. Like they're for this year. So it should be that mentality. Care about this season.
I don't see a Warriors from a few years ago dominant dynasty team. So, Boston has talent. If we were lucky enough to get to the finals, and I know it's crazy we're talking that way, but I like to jump ahead to, Boston has talent. I could say they have more talent than we do. We have a better coach. Just ask Bill Simmons. But anyways, no. So this year is special. I hope we don't get hurt. I mean, we have little nagging injuries right now, but hopefully we'll be okay. Did you play hoops growing up, or were you a baseball guy?
Both. I played baseball and basketball. I didn't play in college or anything like that, but yeah, I'm from Hopkins. So basketball was really, Minnesota people know that basketball is really big there.
So I got the scouting report on you in high school as a player, and it was Matthew Dellavedova. I'm kidding. I didn't get any. I just made that up. I was trying to think of a scrappy guy who couldn't shoot.
That's probably fair. That's probably fair. Except I was like Matthew Dellavedova body, but I played like power forward. So that's why I knew the career was only going.
How tall are you?
I'm just like 6'2", 6'3".
Okay.
So about Dellavedova, which was tall at like 15. But
was basketball your favorite sport growing up, or was it something baseball or something else?
I really loved baseball as a young kid. It's crazy, man. I don't watch it like at all anymore. Like I'm the
you're not missing anything.
I guess not. But I went to a couple like the Twins playoff games, and I was like, man, I kind of miss this. Like there's such different games, right? Like there's something great about baseball. But what I love about basketball is, and I think a lot of people disagree with this, but I think there's something really cool about like basketball night to night. And like the chess match of the game is something I've gotten, I didn't play basketball at a really high level, so I never played in that complicated of like a scheme or anything like that. But that's the cool thing about, having the media access in this is to be able to talk to people like Chris Finch or the assistant coaches just to better learn the game and understand the chess match. I mean, so much of the NBA is becoming matchup chess. And I think it's really cool and it's really defining. Like, think about every one of these like playoff series and guys getting played off the floor and coaching adjustments in the course of a game. Like learning that stuff, I just think that makes basketball the best game. And clearly, my favorite to watch and just dig into is, I just love the game.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, the holidays are here. I'm sporting my festive hair. And I love giving. Sometimes I think the greatest gift you can give a loved one is the gift of Omaha Steaks. I simply adore sending my friends Omaha Steaks, T-bone, beef tenderloin, and the list goes on and on. Plus, they have seafood, different sides like garlic mashed potatoes, and desserts. Omaha Steaks has been around since 1917. And here's another number for you. They age their steaks at least 28 days. Classic aging, classic steaks for a classic guy. This doesn't leave the room, but sometimes when I want to celebrate, I send a gift of Omaha Steaks to Craig Kilborn. I send a gift to myself. I can do that. It's legal. Ribeye steaks, scalloped potatoes, and when I'm being naughty, caramel apple tartlets, little apple tarts. Oh, bad boy. I'm a bad boy. It's kind of a rush. It's the life gorgeous. Oh, the holidays are here. Let Omaha Steaks take the guesswork out of gifting. Shop carefully curated gift packages that are guaranteed to make spirits bright all winter long. Go to omahasteaks.com and save 50% off site-wide. Plus, when you use the promo code KILLBORN at checkout, get an additional $30 off your order. Send tender, juicy butcher's cut filet mignon, mouth-watering burgers, gourmet jumbo franks, or even easy-to-prepare meals that are ready in a flash. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless. This offer won't last long. Omaha Steaks is ready to ship your order right away, so shop early and beat the shipping rush. Go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code KILLBORN at checkout. Omaha Steaks is a gift from the heart, a gift that will be remembered with every unforgettable bite. Order with complete confidence today, knowing you're ordering the very best. Visit omahasteaks.com. Take advantage of 50% off site-wide, plus use promo code KILLBORN at checkout to get that extra $30 off your order. Minimum order may be required. This is exciting. It's kind of a rush. I don't know if I told you this on your pod a while back, but in the maybe 1999 or 2000, it was Phil Jackson on the way to his first championship with the Lakers. They had to play Portland.
Yep.
And with Arvidas and Scottie Pippen and Bonzi Wells.
Bonzi.
Phil Jackson was like, he just keeps running. Dunleavy keeps running the same play, just posting up. Bonzi would post up Kobe. They just keep running it because they couldn't stop him or whatever. But it was I think it was a game 7. Yeah, it was a game 7. Mm-hmm. And I was at a function the night before, and Paul Allen, the owner of the Blazers, was there. I said, "Good luck tomorrow. I'm pulling for you." And he said, "It's all about the refs. It's all about the refs." So here's my question. I just came up with it. I was just wondering, do you have an opinion on Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, where the refs affect a championship series or a game 7? There's no game 7 in the NFL, but you know what I'm saying? Because I sometimes think they affected in all three sports, but do you think one is stronger than the other or not? I've never thought about it until right now.
I think basketball's the hardest to referee, man. I really do. And I noticed this a lot last year, like being around the team and some of the guys, and there was that Tim Donaghy documentary came out. And so like so the Donaghy is like early 2000s, right? And that's when a lot of these players were like, Ant was born in 2001 or whatever.
Right.
So obviously none of these players knew about Tim Donaghy when it was going on, but this documentary comes out and it spells out the early 2000s refereeing corruption very well and implies some of the current day referees in that documentary. And I really noticed a shift last year in the perception of players and their view of referees after that came out. You know, these players are on planes all the time, so they're watching Netflix all the time. And I bet you a lot of NBA players watch that documentary. And I really felt like I noticed a shift in it. And not just Wolves, but like some other players around the league, you know, talking more about corruption and calling out Ben Taylor, who actually refereed the Wolves game last night. It's funny. It was a very well reffed game. But I remember some of the players calling him out specifically last season. And I just think that documentary really empowered players to think there's something going on, whether there is or not. I personally don't think so. But it's creating a bad dynamic. And it's kind of a psychological thing, right? If you think something's could be going on, you believe it. And then when you're impacted by something, you believe you're being screwed by it.
Well, thank God the Wolves don't have anybody on the team that whines.
They lead the league in whining and falling over. And defense. But
I had this weird thought last night because, you know, Jim Pete, they don't like when Cat falls or Nas falls. And Dwayne Wade fell all the time. And I'm thinking, does it save their knees if they don't have the impact of jumping and landing on their feet where they just fall?
I don't know, man. Carl's broke his wrist twice doing it.
I know. Just so the guy, Alex Sulkin from Family Guy, we go to a couple games, and he lets loose on the refs. And when there's a bad call, he goes, Donahue. So everyone
See,
looks
man,
at him.
it's in the like.
This was years ago before the documentary too. He would
Yeah.
say Donahue.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's a brain worm. And honestly, I think you got to coach it out of this team. Like this Wolves team in particular. And I think Rudy's maybe like the most professional player I've ever covered. Like he is just locked in every night. He really is. But even Rudy has this thing where a slight that he feels where they missed a call or whatever, it sticks with him for a couple possessions. And I notice it when he's like a little pissed. Yeah. And I watch the next two possessions. His defense is not on point like it normally is, or he's not getting back in the same way. And I say that to point at Rudy, who I think is the most, obviously we see this a lot more with. I mean, Ant is egregious with his complaining. Carl is, of course, Nas is. Yeah. But this annoyance sticks with this team. And it costs you a handful of possessions. And that's going to matter in a playoff series. Rudy was so pissed after game 5 of that Denver series when they got eliminated. I was talking to him in the locker room after the game. And I don't know, like, I get it. He gets popped in the face all the time, but can Zen Rudy like get more of that in him? I really think it could be a difference maker because all it takes is one game in the playoffs where you think you're getting screwed and you let yourself get screwed because you think that, like get that out of there.
Yeah, when I played, when I even pick up and stuff, there were guys, if you touch them in the face, it's like you're not allowed to do that. And then when I would drive, this is true. My mom's taught us don't hit in the head, brain damage, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't mind. I would extend the ball in the right hand and drive, and someone would try to block it, and they would hit my head. And it felt like kind of good, like I'm getting physical. I didn't mind that. Yeah, a little pop gets you going. It gets you going. But no, these other guys get touched in the face and they freak like that's taboo or something. Couple questions here. You're 34 years old. I'm going to ask you some NBA questions, 3 NBA questions. Then we're going to go to the top 5 movies and then the Life Gorgeous quiz. Who is the greatest? You're a 34-year-old. I want to see generationally if you because everyone is different here. Greatest point guard of all time.
Oh.
Okay, you've already lost. You hesitated this much, but that's
Magic
okay.
Johnson?
Yes, correct. Not even close. Okay. Now, why did you hesitate?
I love Chris Paul.
Oh, yeah, I do too. You know,
I mean, less so. It's getting a little sad later.
Well, I didn't know. I call Chris. See, I knew how good Isaiah Thomas of the Pistons was. He was really good. He was underrated. And I said that about Chris Paul. He's underrated. Yeah. But I just can't believe these people saying Steph Curry, who I don't even consider a point guard. He's a great shooting. He shoots the lights out. Good passer. Turns it over too much. Yeah, Magic Johnson. Good answer. Who's the greatest Laker of all time?
Kareem.
Kareem's a good guess. Yeah, he's pretty. I think it's Magic because of what he did. But Kareem is right there, and you can make an argument that Kareem's the greatest center of all time. So it doesn't bother me. Here's the last one. God bless Kobe, tragic passing away, but I was not a fan of his game. I didn't like his shot selection. So I'm out here in LA and I know the game, but these guys are, crazy Kobe fans. I guess I should have just asked you the question to see. I don't want to sway you. Who's better, LeBron or Kobe?
Oh, LeBron, man.
Yeah. But people out here don't know that. There was a bartender, Musso and Frank. I said, LeBron, this is before Kobe passed. I don't play this game anymore. I said, LeBron's better than Kobe. And he took my martini away. I mean, because they're addicted to Kobe because of his, his fire, his competitive nature, his killer instinct.
It's just the thing you can't argue about LeBron is his point guarding ability and an ability to read the floor. I mean, it's just, I've covered the NBA in later stage LeBron, but if you talk to like assistant coaches of like, who are the biggest problems in the league, like they will still say LeBron because it's a team problem. It's not like, I think it's pretty clear now that there's a handful of better individual scorers than LeBron in the league, but the combination of still being a very, very good scorer and he's playing 3D chess when everyone else is playing checkers, and that element of it's kind of like the Rudy element that we were talking about before, where when you're seeing it every night, the specific small things Rudy does defensively, like LeBron is that on steroids, I think, for offense. And it's not to take away from Kobe, who was special in a different, like,
Right.
I love the Kobe mentality. I think that is absolutely special, and it made up for probably some of the things you're nitpicking on, the shot selection, some of that sort of stuff. But I personally, I mean, it's LeBron. Like,
good answer. Before I forget, I don't know what year it was when it was the Lakers and the Orlando Magic in the finals. And Kobe and Pau Gasol won. They beat Dwight Howard and Jameer Nelson.
09?
Yeah, it bothered me because Cleveland had the best record in the East, and they lost. I was stunned. I wanted to see that Kobe LeBron matchup. And, I was talking to James Worthy later, and he said, playoffs are different kind of matchup there. Orlando was able to beat Cleveland. So that's where I get concerned about matchups. The regular season is different. The playoffs. I'm not, when I say concerned, I don't want everyone to freak out if the Wolves have a bad matchup and somehow, have a great regular season and then, a disappointing playoff. We're not rooting for that, but it does happen sometimes. And then you got to make adjustments. You remember, the Bucks had to make adjustments to get Drew Holiday. They had to make a trade. You have to make trades sometimes. You have to do these things, but we'll see how it goes. I'm very optimistic. I don't think we've done it. Have you done your top 5 movies? Do you have 5? I didn't give you that prep. If you don't have it, you can name 3, you can name 0. Or do you have any movies?
Yeah. If I go back, and like I said, I'm 34 years old. I think when I was a kid, the 2 movies that teenage me absolutely loved were Rounders with Matt Damon, Edward Norton. That's still up there. That's like I'm just sitting around on a Saturday afternoon. Like that might be the plan for the next hour and a half. And then a dumb one would be Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
I'm not going full film buff here. But that was when I think about childhood, it would be that. Other than that, I'm vamping. But I want to sound smart here. I'm talking to somebody from LA.
I mean,
I'm smarter about basketball than I am about movies.
Because a lot of the there are people named comedies, people. Yeah, but if you don't have 5, it's fine. Because I didn't.
No, I could rattle off a couple more.
I do want the people to know. I forgot, and I didn't give Dane the
prompt. I think I probably should have known this. I've watched your show. I probably should have known this.
No, I think I heard your 5 on your. I think you did it on your podcast, so I didn't.
Maybe we were talking about it.
Yeah.
So many of them. Manchester by the Sea was a recent movie I love.
That was great. You don't watch the old movies like The Godfather. Some people mention that stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean that was back in the day. I took a film class in college. I've seen all the nerdy ones, the Citizen Kanes and the
Hitchcock film.
Yeah. But I have a weird thing with movies, and it's why I think Rounders and Dumb and Dumber are up there with me. I don't like watching things twice, which is weird because I watch every Timberwolves game twice. But I'm like big on, I don't know, I'll watch something else that I don't know is good that I haven't seen rather than rewatching something I know I will.
That's fascinating. Enjoy. I'm going to tell you.
Can we psychoanalyze? Like, why am I that way?
I don't know. I wanted to comment that one of my favorite things to do, I did this morning, is over coffee, which is my favorite time. I love getting up, having coffee, listening to my music, reading some stuff, or rewatching the 4th quarter of a Wolves win. So I don't watch the entire game. I watch the 4th quarter. Or if I want to watch the 3rd and 4th, I'll do that. But that is enjoyable. As far as watching movies over, it's something I do. I watch The Firm over and over again, In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood. There's a really good Paul Newman movie called The Verdict, which I watch over and over. And it's entertaining. There was a time when I was younger, I go, I don't want to keep watching this movie, or I don't want to watch it a second time. I don't want to spoil it for myself. And I don't listen to Sinatra. I used to listen to Sinatra so much. Now I only listen to Sinatra at the holidays. So there's certain movies. I'm a Hitchcock fan. I only watch it once in a while, but I'm not spoiling The Firm by watching it over and over again. that makes any sense.
Why, like, okay, so for me, I think about when I say Rounders and Dumb and Dumber of like why those are two movies I will watch over and over again. It's because it's nostalgic to me. It's like I remember playing poker with my friends when I was a teenager or whatever. And like it's that. Or Dumb and Dumber is like at a sleepover with friends when I was a kid or whatever. We'd watch that. Why do you the movies you do watch over and over again, why?
Well, the quick answer is they make me feel good. But I don't know. Like I was going to say, you played poker. Maybe you won in poker, and you want to be reminded of that. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know why we do it. I do like. Sometimes they might remind me of my parents. Certain old songs and stuff, or the happy childhood that I reference, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure. So you're at 3. Do you want to do 2 more, or do you want to move on to the Life Gorgeous quiz? Because I don't want you to just throw them out there if you don't know.
I want to move on to the Life Gorgeous quiz and think about it.
This is the Life Gorgeous quiz. Simple questions, profound insights. Favorite NBA arena?
Dallas, because they put us courtside. Oh. I've come to realize that what I think of an arena is almost completely related to where the media seating is now. Like I was in San Francisco for the 2 games against the Warriors the other week. Great. Have you been to Chase Center yet?
Not yet. I mean, it's San Francisco. It's one of my favorite cities. I used to live up there. Haven't been there yet.
It's like, it's so funny. It's probably, I guess it's the nicest, newest arena I've been to. That and Pfizer in Milwaukee are both like really new. But both of those, man, they put us up like on the angle, second level. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I want to like get my iPad out and like watch the game. Like I was there for the Gobert chokehold or Draymond Gobert chokehold thing. And I'm like peering down, like trying to see where I'm like, man, if they had me courtside or where they have us at Target Center, like that would have been right in front of me, you know? So that, but I love Dallas. It's not just because they put us courtside. It's like this deep bowl. And the sound is awesome in there. Yeah. It is. I'd really, really recommend Dallas.
I'm nostalgic. I like Madison Square Garden. I played one-on-one there with Rebecca Lobo. I enjoy going to the Madison Square Garden. I haven't seen all the arenas, by the way. What is your favorite NBA city to visit? So this would factor in the city itself, the restaurants, etc.
I spent a ton of time in Denver last year. Obviously, we were there for the playoff series. But, man, Denver just as a city has really grown on me. I have like my cousin and his fiance live there. I'm really close with them. And I've become really good friends with a lot of like the Denver media people. It's like, it's in ways got a similar vibe to Minneapolis, but it's a little bit different. I think it helps like the cities you've been to over and over again too. So you kind of like have your haunts that you go back to, but Denver's for sure growing on me. I think I was at like 7-8 games there last year.
A little side note, you just reminded me of a story in the late 80s. After I got out of college, I was living in Los Angeles, first Venice Beach, and then over in like West LA. And I used to go to the YMCA and play against, I'll give you 3 people. Leon the actor. I don't know if you know Leon the actor. Chris Marlowe, the play-by-play voice of the Nuggets. He was a volleyball player. His dad was an actor. I think he tried acting, then he left LA, and now he's the voice of the Denver Nuggets. And another guy named Chip England, who is a shooting coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he played a little more trivia for you. Chip played at Duke. I think he was recruited by the coach that preceded Coach K. I think his name was Coach Foster. Didn't play as much under Coach K as he wanted to. He was more of a shooter, not a defender. Chip went to Pacific Palisades. Can you name 2 other NBA players? Because I don't know if Chip played in the NBA. I don't think he did. Can you name 2 NBA players from Pacific Palisades in Los Angeles high school? No?
Should I be able to?
Well, when you're in LA, you know Palisades is a beautiful place out near Malibu, but they had Kiki Vandeweghe and Steve Kerr went to Pacific Palisades. Do you find that interesting?
I need to up my LA game. Yeah. I connected with you out there last year at the playing game.
Oh yeah, that was.
I'm going to come out. I'm going to be there for. They play the Clippers and Lakers back-to-back games.
There's
when is that?
That's in March.
Yeah, I'll be there.
And I think the Wolves are here for a while because they have a layover or something here for a while. Who do you dislike more, Draymond Green or Pat Bev?
Okay, well, I don't know Draymond at all, right? Like, and to the extent I know Pat from covering him for a year, I love those types of players, right? Like, they are getting more than their skill sets offer. But I don't know, man. I didn't love Pat. It was like he was a little harsh. He was just like a little. His vibe was. One time I was in Denver, and we're doing the post game media thing, and Pat had like classically conditioned us in the media when he would come in, he would say hello, and we would need to respond hello, Pat, and because he's Pat, and this one kid who's like covering his first game ever for some paper or whatever, he doesn't know this, and he stops and he says, "I said hello to you." Like, and then this kid is like 24 and he's like looking up at him. He's like, hello, Pat. And I don't know. Pat was just, I loved covering him for the year, like the play of the team, but just sometimes he rubbed me a little bit. I wasn't as heartbroken as the fan base was when Pat didn't come back. I'll say that. You
have any idea what I think of Pat Bev or not? You have any guess on what I think of Pat Bev?
I mean, I would assume you love him.
Can't stand him.
Oh, yeah?
Can't stand him.
Well, you've probably seen a lot of him out in like LA.
Yeah, stuff. Just can't stand him. Can't stand him. So I don't like Draymond. Draymond's loud. He talks all the time. But Pat Bev just so and the fan base likes him.
Have you talked about the Draymond headlock thing on here?
Did I?
Yeah.
I think I talked to, well, it was my writer friends, and they didn't care. You know, the comedy guys, they like that.
What did you think of that whole incident? I thought it was one of the weirdest fights.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the history with Draymond and Rudy. I know they've gone at it with some tweets in the past. I'm sure you're familiar with those. You know, I think a lot of the American players have an issue with the Frenchman. And you know, Rudy's special. He's not polished offensively. I think that bothers some players. No, Draymond, I don't like Dylan Brooks. I mean, these guys are just clowns. And I just, you know, I love when Barkley says, you know, everyone acts tough on the court because you got refs there, you got people there, you got security there. It's not like they're in a parking lot, you know, fighting. Mm-hmm. In general, I don't like hotheads. And I just thought Draymond was a fool. And I think I loved how Rudy handled it.
Okay, but so I got some pushback for this when I talked about it the next day. If you were Karl Anthony Towns or Anthony Edwards, and Draymond is yanking Rudy in a headlock across the floor, what does Craig Kilborn do to defuse the situation?
Okay.
Because they got your guy in a headlock.
Okay, man. I got an idea because I come up with weird ideas. Run around the front and take your hand and push it in Draymond's face and say, "What are you doing?" And like touch his face. That's not assault. Like if you do that, is it? What are you doing? Stop it, Draymond. Like maybe he'd knock your hand away. Do something a little quirky to counter what he's doing, or go pinch his bottom from behind. Do something to break it up. He's a fool, and I'm glad
I like the butt pinch. Karl and Ant were in perfect position for a butt pinch there.
Yeah, but I thought they were smart by not doing anything because you don't know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? The fact that Rudy grabbed Clay, I mean, that's okay. And then Steve Kerr says you're not supposed to grab, you know, the other player. You're supposed to grab your own. Well, he couldn't. He had to run around and do it. You know, come on.
Yeah, he would have had to pinch Clay's butt and get around and put his hand in his face.
So I find it very irritating. Just trying to think, there was something else.
Man, how fun will that series be, though, if it's Wolves Warriors in the playoffs?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of them. Yeah, that'll be amazing. Clay's kind of dropped off, hasn't he?
I know, man. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, it happens.
He's getting up there, and he's torn his ACL and his Achilles.
I want to finish on a strong note, so I'm going to save my last question. I want to get rid of the movie thing now.
Yeah. Okay.
If you have two.
Oh, yeah, I thought of one. Did you see the end of the tour? Is the David Foster Wallace movie?
No.
You should watch
No.
that. That was
Okay.
I really Jesse Eisenberg and oh my god, how am I forget Jason Segel. Jason Segel played David Foster Wallace. I like that.
Do you see a lot of movies, by the way, or not?
I do. So I'm not during basketball season because
Right.
I'm watching
Sure.
like games, right?
Right.
As much as I reasonably can. But I'm pretty big. But that's my thing is it's hard to pick favorites when I just like a lot of good movies, right? I'm excited when I go to HBO Max and I'm like, oh, there's like 5 on here I want to see.
I watch all the Bond movies with Daniel Craig. I love those. I like the Jason Bourne movies. I like action. I like espionage. I like the Mission Impossible movies. They're not in my top 5, but I like those. But if you would have said one of the Jason Bourne movies, you would have scored a lot of points by saying that. You know?
I wanted to sound like cooler. I did 2 comedies and 2 artsy movies. I did see the new Mission Impossible movie last weekend. I think this is a good. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. So you only get to watch one actor or actress's catalog of movies for the rest of your life. You don't get to watch any movie that doesn't include this actor or actress in it. Which actor or actress would you choose?
Well, my knee jerk. So I have some favorite actors: Peter O'Toole, Richard Burton, Cary Grant, but some of them didn't make as many great movies. So
that's not the question. It's like you want to have a thick catalog, and you probably want to have a diverse genre.
Right. So I might say Cary Grant because he's in North by Northwest. He's in a couple Hitchcock movies. Let me just think for a second. Richard Burton's in a couple movies I like.
I think Matt Damon's a good answer to it.
Oh yeah,
actually.
he's in The Talented Mr. Ripley, the Jason Bourne movies. Yeah, he's in a lot of good stuff.
Dramas, whatever, like I think that's what you got to be to that question.
What if I
Leo?
What if I said Leo? Would you put me in a category?
No.
Would you call me a fanboy if I said Leo?
No, I'm with the Leo. It's
Grace Kelly. You don't know her. She's before your time.
Who's Grace?
Grace Kelly. She's an old actress. So she was in some Hitchcock movies. Yeah. Beautiful. One of the most beautiful women.
Okay.
Grace
From the Hitchcock movies. I know you're talking about.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep.
Yep. She's been in a lot of good movies.
There's a good answer there.
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I have an answer because I like this guy in so many movies. And I was going back. My knee jerk is to go to the classic guys I love, the British actors. I'll take De Niro. Yeah. I could do Pacino or De Niro. I'll just take De Niro because he's in so much stuff I like.
And I think the strategy here would be to take De Niro because then you get again, these are the only movies you ever get to watch again for the rest of your life. So now you get some of the other crappier De Niro movies, but they're comedies or whatever that he's in there. And De Niro's a good one. I haven't thought about that before. The main ones I get when I stole this from one of my friends. Shout out John. It's not necessarily that you love the actor. It's that they have a lot of they are in a lot of movies, 1, and a lot of movies 2 that you like. But Damon, Leo, Meryl Streep's up there. I'm trying to think of who other ones.
Yeah, I think Pacino I'd have to look at the movies and think in which one, but that's we gotta hustle. I gotta go work on. I'm gonna go down to the park. I'm gonna go down to Compton, and I have a game at 2:00 this afternoon, LA time. I'm joking. I was joking. I usually say I get a massage in about 20 minutes. And I say I'm gonna go work on my game. I'm gonna go work on my game. The gooseneck, shooting like Steve Nash. Keep that elbow tucked.
There you go.
I love this last question. It's a food question. I don't eat a lot of carbs, so it's a joy when I get to have a sandwich. Top 3 sandwiches of all time for Dane Moore.
Ooh, I'm a big Reuben fan.
I can't believe you said that. Are you joking when you say that?
No.
That's my number 1.
Oh, for real? I thought you were about to roast me for that.
No. I love sauerkraut. You can either have pastrami or corned beef. You can have toasted rye. I love toasted rye, but I also like pumpernickel. Reuben. I can't believe you said that.
There you go. Reuben, I'm just a big steak fan. You go to get a good steak sandwich.
Did you just say a steak sandwich? Is that
steak.
Okay, number 2. Okay. I don't necessarily consider that a sandwich, but either it's chicken parm sandwich. It's a sandwich. It's all good.
Okay.
No, it's good. You could have said roast beef, which is more of a sandwich, but steak sandwich is fine.
All of my family. I'm Italian, and my like family's from Chicago, and big like Italian sandwich with like giardiniera on there, like at my grandpa's house.
Yeah.
Like would be my nostalgic sandwich answer.
So that's all the salami and the ham and all that stuff. Those are good with the vinaigrette sometimes, a little cheese and the whole
You ever had
thing.
giardiniera before?
No, what is that?
It's like a vinegary but like pepper spice thing. You just kind of pour it over the top there. Ooh.
I may have had it. We have a place over here that has Italian sandwiches with mozzarella, fresh mozzarella and tomatoes and vinaigrette. So maybe they use that there.
You got to get a little less healthy.
Yes. So here's my other two. I just want to see your response. We have the Reuben. I have a cold sandwich chicken salad because I love chicken salad with grapes and walnuts. I love red onions. I love the cheese on toasted rye chicken salad. Do you care about chicken salad?
Not a chicken salad fan.
I bet you don't like this one. This is the controversial one. Third one, hot one. Patty, wait, I almost forgot. Tuna melt. Nothing, right?
I'm not a tuna fan.
That's okay. A lot of people, but Ryan Russillo agrees with you.
Oh, yeah?
You can't go back to the office after you have tuna melt for lunch. That's what he said.
This is the man. He's good. Yeah. You listen to his stuff?
Oh, yeah.
He's a really good. I saw it. He came on with you.
He loves Ant, by the way. I mean, adores. I think it might be his favorite player in the NBA. That's how much he likes him.
And he hates KAT.
Yeah, he does. He has an issue with KAT. There's somebody else. He doesn't. Obviously, nobody likes James Harden.
I think he had Finch on his pod too. I think he likes Finch.
Yeah, they also. We don't talk about him anymore, but they Bill Simmons and Ryan loathe DLo.
Yeah. Yep.
Good riddance. But I like it where I'm a basketball fan. So when he rainbows his threes, I'm like, there's DLo. You know, he's stylish, but I'm glad I don't have to worry about him. You know what? You might find this controversial. I like DLo more than Andrew Wiggins. I find Andrew Wiggins to be generic and boring and no passion and no personality.
Well, that's what I was going to say, man. Not even close of like love of the game.
Right.
With DLo versus Andrew. I mean, me and DLo were cool. Like he came on my show and stuff like that. Like, but I mean, I at the same time acknowledge that he absolutely did not work or fit here. And Mike is a much better fit on this roster. Right. I think that in ways DLo could have been more liked here. I think there were endearing parts to DLo that were so overshadowed by, I mean, he just got so sick of what Minnesota was in his time here, from it being COVID, like that first year KAT gets hurt, La Rosa's disaster, all this. And if he has a flaw, it's that I think he does have flaws, but I think a big one is he just got so impatient with this.
But I felt he didn't want to get traded because it made him look bad, like he keeps getting traded. I felt he wanted to stay there, but he has a bad attitude. When I hear different things that he said even to the owner, Glenn Taylor, he said things. Come on, that's ridiculous. But he could pass better than I thought he could. He could make some passes. He could zip some passes. Thread the needle.
Remember how excited we were about the DLo and KAT pick and roll?
Yeah,
because it just never happened.
Yeah, because we were excited. It's hard to get talent up there, and man, it's a glorious time, Dane. Let's enjoy it.
Fun, dude. It's fun. I'm really excited. I think both of us would echo this. Like, excited for the fan base, right?
Yep.
And I mean, when you came out, we did the show at the brewery and done that a handful of times. It's just, I'm just grateful because I make my living off of people listening to me talk about the Timberwolves. And so I'm grateful that they're getting some. This was feeling like a one-way street here for a while where the fans weren't getting anything out of it.
I love the fan. I love when you took the fan questions, and some of these guys are diehard. And didn't somebody ask who's the worst draft pick or something?
Yeah.
I just said Rashad McCants. I like Rashad McCants. He's talented. He scored 27 at the Knicks once.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we tried. Derek Williams. He seemed like the right pick, the number 2 pick.
Wes
It's
Johnston.
tricky. It's tricky when you But
Culver might actually be the worst. Culver's the worst. It's like too recent for us to remember.
6th pick. They wanted Darius Garland. They wanted to trade up and get Darius Garland.
What if they would have got anything out of that Culver pick? Like just
right.
like someone better than Shake Milton. That was just
Yeah. I know.
That was a bad pick.
Can't wait to see who I always think we're going to steal somebody this year. We're going to steal somebody in the 20s.
Hey, it's a better front office for drafting now. They're so dialed on that stuff. Yeah. It's that's the thing to watch for with this team, man, is can they make some moves on the margins? Like, again, let's have fun with this year. Let's see how far it can go. But like, there's a lot more runway of Ant left. And that's on Tim Connolly and his group to maximize, and that's on A-Rod and Lori to pay up for. You can put in a word with them.
I will see you at the championship parade in Minneapolis. Thank you, brother. Thanks for doing the show.
Oh, man, anytime. It's a perfect time for this to happen, and let's do it again soon.
Thank you, sir. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. Remember, young people, I'm proud of you. We'll see you next time.